Welcome to the December 8th, 2022 edition of CED Office Hour Live, where we talk and discuss and deliberate on all things community and economic development. And this is the efforts of Ambrose Moses, Eric Smith, and myself, Amber Twitty, who make up the Community and Economic Development team at Central State University Extension. And today, we have as our esteemed guest Miss Stevie Swain. She is the president and CEO of Swain Consulting, and she will be giving us information around um, insurance from a personal um, perspective, education level, why we need it, how it mitigates, not having to do a GoFundMe when someone dies
Mm.
because you didn't plan properly, and other ways that you can leverage that. She also does a lot of work with businesses. And with businesses, we look at ways as a business owner, you always look at ways to reduce overhead and reduce risk, right? So that your business can grow, succeed, sustain, maintain, and provide the services that you set yourself up to provide, right? So before I turn it over to Stevie, I always like to give a definition of what community and economic development is, commonly known as CED. We hear that term all the time, right? Just like diversity, it touches on everything in some way. And so, depending sometimes on who you talk to, you get a little different variation or just one segment of that definition. So, I like to give the whole kind of definition or explain it so that we all have the same foundation, right? So, community and economic development looks at how we live, work, play, thrive, and how we navigate through all of the spaces. So, it's on one end of the spectrum, it deals with economic development like infrastructure, development of common spaces like parks, green spaces, affordable housing, new office buildings, highways, bike paths, which is common, comprehensive bike paths are common right now. To the other end of the spectrum, which is the people development, workforce development, personal development, um, record selling clinics, um, all of those kind of things, helping families to move towards self sufficiency, self empowerment kind of things, to the connector between the two, which is businesses and organizations that help all of that go around and help people to navigate, right? And so today in that middle section, we have Mrs. Stevie Swain. So I will turn it over to you so you can just kind of introduce yourself and then let's get into the subject matter.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me here today, Amber. I think by now everybody knows my name, Stevie Swain, President and CEO of Swain Consulting. Um, I want to start in the insurance industry category, and I want to just focus on that for starters. A lot of times, what's interesting to me is as I'm out and about in the world, if you're trying to talk to young people about life insurance, well, let me just back up and say anybody. If I walk up to them and I say that I'm an insurance agent, they go, bye. They don't want to talk to me. They think all I want to do is sell some life insurance. That's a pretty unfortunate situation. I don't particularly care if I write a policy for you or not. What I'm most interested in is making sure that people that I'm surrounded with are educated. We got a lot of people that simply don't understand life insurance. And so I'm going to start by asking those of you on screen today, and raise your hand, who can tell me the difference between term and whole life insurance? Amber, I don't think you're able to answer because you already know. I'm, I'm going to ask the guys, who can tell me the difference between term and whole life? Go ahead, Paul.
So generally, term life only exists to provide a death benefit. It has no surrender value. It builds no cash value. It's only good for the contract term. Whole life over time builds a cash value that can be borrowed against or surrendered to cash into, things like that.
Okay. Everybody agree with that? For the most part. Okay. So what I'm going to attempt to do today is I want to give you guys the difference between term and whole life. But more importantly today, I need you all to understand the purpose and the benefit of both, because they both play a significant role in our lives. And the first thing that I want to point out, Paul, you were onto something. You said that whole life policies will have cash value. Well, there's a news flash, sweetie. All whole life policies do not offer cash value. So if that's the type of policy you want, I need you to make sure that you're clear with your agent that that's what you're looking for. And we'll talk about the ones that don't in just a second. But in a nutshell, if you were to walk into a life insurance company and you said, I want to get a life insurance policy and I'd like it to be term, please and thank you. Well, depending on how old you were when you walked into that life insurance company, the longest term policy you can get is going to be a 30-year policy. Why only 30 years? Because most policies, or I should say most mortgages today, are 30-year mortgages. So here's what I need for you all to take to the streets and make sure that people understand this. Term life insurance is intended to protect your temporary debt only. Okay? So from now on, when you hear the phrase term life insurance, I want you to think about your mortgage to remind yourself that term life insurance is for temporary debt. So when you think about your temporary debt, Eric, you look like I already knew that. Did you know that? Did you know that, sweetie?
Just the basics.
Okay. So when you think about your temporary debt, here's what I want you to think about. Your mortgage, your car, your credit card, and college tuition. Those are the largest debts we're ever going to create for ourselves in our lifetime. And so you always want to make sure that you and your spouse have enough term life insurance to protect that debt. The purpose of making sure that you all have enough term to protect that debt is so that if God should call either one of you home untimely, unexpectedly, the other one doesn't have to change their style of living because they lost your income. They should be able to pay off those debts and stay put. That's the purpose of term life insurance. Whole life insurance, on the other hand, is strictly intended to take care of your final expenses. Today, final expenses run anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000. Every 20 years, the funeral industry will double their cost. We never know when that 20-year mark is going to hit. So I simply tell everybody that I have an opportunity to educate, make sure that, make sure that, you have enough. In the next 20 years, services are going to be $30,000 to $40,000. And God love our young people, because in 40 years, services are going to be $40,000 to $60,000 for a service. So I'm going to be the bearer of bad news today by telling you to make sure that you tell all your young people within your circle that now is the time for them to get out and get a $60,000 whole life insurance that does grow cash. Here's what I want to refresh you guys on. I think back to when I was in my early 20s, I had a $150,000 whole life insurance policy, but I didn't understand the value of what I had. And so what did I do? The first time I found myself in a financial bind, Paul, you said you can get cash out. Yep. I didn't think to take the cash out and keep the policy. I don't want the policy no more. Give me all my money, right? I was paying 20 some odd dollars a month for that policy. Had I kept it 40 some odd years later, do you know how much money I could have had in that policy had I kept it? And I still would have been paying 20 some odd dollars for it. I could kick myself now for what I didn't know back then. So that's why I'm trying to stress to you guys, share this information with your young family members, but when you're telling them about it, it's never going to be any less expensive for them than it is now because they're young and they're healthy. When I worked for Western and Southern some years ago, I had a multitude of policies. And so when I stepped out on my own, I thought, I don't need to keep all these policies. We had 15 grandchildren at the time. We had policies on 10 plus policies, multiple policies on my spouse and myself. So I decided I was going to get rid of some of those policies. Well, time went on and I purchased a new home. Yes, at my old age, I purchased a new home. And when I tried to go out and get life insurance to protect the value of the home, they wanted to decline me because I'd been diagnosed, I think like 6 months before I left Western and Southern, I was diagnosed with trigeminal neuralgia, which is a symptom of epilepsy. Though I don't have it, I have a symptom. And the insurance company says that it could hit me at a time when I'm behind the wheel and I could kill myself or kill somebody. So they didn't want to insure me. My point in sharing that is you never know. The older we get, we're one doctor's office visit away from finding out we're either going to be on medication for the rest of our life, or God forbid, you get diagnosed with something where an insurance company won't touch you. And at that point, it becomes a burden to your family, how they're going to put you away. So my message to you all today is please make sure that you share with your family members now that you do know the difference between term and whole life, and now you know the purpose and the benefit of each of them. You really don't need a whole life insurance at more than 35,000 for us in our age group. Younger people, go ahead and do 60,000 in whole life. But make sure that we are teaching people to think about what it costs for their mortgage, to pay off their cars, their credit cards, and if they're planning to pay for college, make sure they've got enough term life insurance to protect that debt. People who go to work every day for a living, they need both. They need term and whole life. A lot of companies today do not offer life insurance, but there's a lot of companies that do. And those that do, you're lucky if you can get 30,000 from that employer. Most of them today are going to offer 10,000, and they may offer you the opportunity to multiply it up to 3 times, but $30,000 worth of term life insurance, that's going to, as long as you're getting it through your employer, it's going to go up every 5 years. Every 5 years, incremental increase. So it's smart to accept what's offered to you on your job if it's offered, but always make sure that you've got your own life insurance. Another thing is our babies. People think that the kids don't need a life insurance policy. We're losing babies, in case you guys haven't been watching the news. So make sure that we get a proper policy on babies. You know, I say this, it bugs me that you got to have driver's license, you got to have auto insurance, you've got to have homeowners insurance. Everybody knows that we're going to leave here. Why is it not required that you have life insurance? They leave that up to you. Make sure that you don't leave a burden to your family and that you get yourselves some life insurance, but make sure that, I want to say this, insurance agents have a bad name. We have a bad rap. They think all we want to do is sell life insurance and we're in it for the money. There's a lot of agents out here that are in it for the money. I, on the other hand, am not. I want to make sure that my clients are educated, and I want you to make the decision about what's going to work best for you and your family. If I had it my way, all mothers and dads would have insurance and they would have it on their children too. That just makes the burden easy when something unexpected happens. Does anybody have any questions as it relates to life insurance?
Can you give the
Okay,
difference between term and whole life insurance one more time? Because we had a couple more
sure.
people join us after you said it before.
Okay. So the difference between term and whole life, term life insurance is intended to protect your temporary debt only. So when you're trying to find out how much term life insurance you actually need, you want to make sure that you're covering what would it take to pay off your mortgage, your car, your credit card, and college tuition. I'm even going to go a step further. I am now educating my clients. I'm not covering college tuition. I gave you life. Why do I need to pay for your college? If you want to go to college, you want to find a community college. To send your child to a top ranked college for them to get the same acronyms behind their name that they're going to get from a community college is ridiculous. When we sign off on that college or that college debt, we're closer to retirement than our children are. And I do this for the federal government. I serve the federal government right now. A lot of times as I'm doing their retirement packages and I think I'm going to put a bow on it, I get interrupted. Well, Stevie, I need to get 40,000 out of there to pay off a college debt. And I'm thinking, you didn't go to college to work for the federal government. So 9 times out of 10, it's something for their children. And their children couldn't even get a job in the field that they've gotten that degree in. So wasted money. You dipped into my retirement fund. No, I'm not paying for college tuition. I'm going to let them, I might help a little bit here and there, but to put my name on the dotted line, not doing it. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a quick
Or did
question.
I finish that? I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
you
did
can.
I finish that? Whole life is
Yes.
for final expenses only. Okay, go
So,
ahead,
so
Amber.
so you answered the one question that I had when concerning should people have both the term and whole life. You said if they're working, they should have both.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you sort of coordinate that of getting term and life so that you're not overpaying, or is that a
That
thing?
that that's why I'm putting this out here like this. So again, for whole life insurance, whole life is intended just for your final expenses. So I'm going to run through that again. Funeral expenses right now are $10,000 to $15,000. Every 20 years, the funeral industry double their costs. We never know when that 20-year mark is going to hit. So you just think about in another 20 years, services are going to be 20 to 30,000, and in 40 years, services will be 40 to 60,000. So depending on your age group and how long you anticipate, we all want to live a long and fruitful life. I'm saying anywhere between 60 and up, 35,000 is enough in whole life. Term is always going to be based on the mortgage card, credit card, and college tuition that you want to pay. So those are the things you're going to gauge it on. And when you meet with your insurance agent, again, if you want a whole life policy that grows cash value, make sure you let your agent know that. I want to talk briefly about universal life policies because I want to make sure that everybody is clear that all whole life policies do not grow cash value. So there's a universal life policy that has and you may see it if anybody has one. It's a COI. That's cost of insurance. What happens with that particular policy? Years ago, in the 80s and 90s, the universal life policies were the most popular policy out there because you could literally tell the insurance agent, I want a $100,000 policy and I want to pay $50 a month. And they said, okay, because you were supposed to pay into it for so many years. And then at a certain point, it would have so much money built up in it that you wouldn't have to pay your premiums anymore. The premiums could come right out of that extra bucket of money. What happened is when this policy was being sold like hotcakes, nobody read the fine print. There's a cost of insurance in that policy, and it comes out every month that you're supposed to be making payments. Every year that you get older, the cost of insurance goes up and up and up. And eventually, what would happen to that policy is that bucket of money that was supposed to be built up in there has been depleted because the cost of insurance was coming out of that bucket of money and nobody said anything about it. And so when that bucket of money is gone, that policy isn't worth the paper it's written on. It's a belly up policy. When I was at Western and Southern, I made a point of finding people who had a universal life policy, and I would go out and I would explain it to them. And the first thing they would say is, why didn't you guys tell me this before now? Well, if you have a whole life policy, you get annual statements. When you get your statements from your insurance company, people, please read your paperwork. The information was right there in your face. Over in the Western and Southern annual statements, so it was over in the right-hand column of the front page. It would clearly tell you, if you continue to pay on this policy, it's going to run until 2020. If you don't continue to pay on this policy, it will only run until 2016. So what I would do is I would show those people that the money that they were spending for that policy, the $50 they said they wanted to pay, stop paying into this one, because it already shows you that if you stop paying, it's going to end in 2016. So let's say it was 2013 or 14 that I was talking to these people. So I would say that $50 you're putting here, we're going to put it in a whole life policy that's going to be level premium, level benefit, never going to change. This new policy is going to run you $75. So really all they're adding is another $25 to have a policy that's going to be with them forever. And it was probably going to be a larger face value. And if something should happen to them, they now have 2 active policies until 2016. Remember, it's 2013 that I'm talking to them. I did have a situation with a woman that did happen, and I'm going to share it. I'd met with her, talked to her and her husband. They were a little squeamish about it. They wanted to think about it. I followed back up the following week. They still hadn't made a decision. The third week, I'm saying I really need to fix this for these people because the policy is going to end up going belly up. So they decided, okay. So I went and I did the policy for them. And the day that I got the notice that the policy had been issued, I called Miss Mary to tell her that the policy was issued. And she said, Stevie, I don't think I'm going to be able to accept the policy. And I thought, Jesus Christ, what's wrong now? That day, she had just come from the doctors and she was diagnosed as having cancer. And I said, Miss Mary, we're not going to buy into that. The medical exam that they did, where they checked medical, anytime you do an application for life insurance, the insurance company will check the Medical Information Bureau. When they checked Medical Information Bureau, she had not been diagnosed with cancer yet. So I'm saying, you're safe to take this policy. Please take this policy. She's got to talk to her husband. 3 days later, she says, yes, we'll take the policy. Great. I go and I deliver the policy. Now, I'm in church one Sunday, and I realized that I go to church with her daughter, not knowing that she also had a son there. But this one Sunday, we are in a equipping for service class. This guy is bawling his eyes out. Everybody's wondering what's wrong. So I turn around, and I'm saying, do you know him? And she goes, yeah, that's my brother. I'm like, oh, my God, so what's wrong? Well, Miss Mary, they had taken her out for dinner. What she said was, Mom is in the nursing home. And first thing I thought was the cancer. Turns out they had taken her to dinner for Mother's Day, and she slipped on grease and broke her neck. So now I go and visit her in the hospital, in the nursing home, and I'm saying, we've got to change the ownership on your policy because the nursing home will try to eat up that life insurance policy. I did not get back in time, guys. She passed, and and then I freaked out. I was all prepared for Western and Southern to pull the rug out from under me and not pay. Remember, she's got 2 policies. They paid out the old policy that I'd stopped her from paying on. They paid that within 2 weeks. And then I want to say it might have been the 4th week that I got a call. They were going to pay the other policy. I was able to call her husband and let him know that we had another $100,000 check for him, which was awesome because they had taken in their grandchildren. They were taking care of their grandbabies. So all worked out. But bottom line, universal life policies have a cost of insurance in there that will eat up the cash, and there is no cash that you can really take out of that policy. So just be very careful about that. Any other questions on life insurance? Okay. So
I do have one.
sure.
Sorry, I'm not on camera. I'm driving. But is
You're
there a
fine.
difference between my State Farm agent? I'm dropping names here. I'm sorry. My State Farm agent, and then a friend who sells this as a multi-marketing, multi-level networking opportunity. Is there a difference between what they offer me?
Ooh, this is a sticky one. Absolutely, there's a difference, Steve. Absolutely, there's a difference. Here, I'm going to give you guys an example. I cannot say names, and so listen closely. There's a company out here that sells nothing but term life insurance. Not a good deal. They're taking advantage of people. What they failed to do first is, the motto is, buy term and invest the rest. A lot of people can barely afford to buy life insurance. So what makes you think that they've got extra money to invest the rest? And the people who are saying buy term and invest the rest aren't even securities licensed to sell you the investment portion. I also want you to know that they don't share with you how the cost of that life insurance policy is going to jump dramatically when you get in your 60s and 70s, and when you're retired, you're going to be spending your pension check for that life insurance policy. And the sad part is, when you got that policy from said company, if you just flip back about 4 or 5 pages, there's an illustration page that will show you that you got it today, you're 60, and it's costing you $84, but at 65, it's going to cost you $125. And then at 70, it's going to cost you $214. And at 72, it's going to cost you $400. Who can afford that? All you had to do was open up the policy. Most people will buy a life insurance policy. When it comes to them, they stick it in a drawer. I'm good. No, you're not. You better open it up and read it. Every insurance agent is not in the industry for truly serving their clients. It's all about the dollar for them. Make sure that you are dealing with insurance agents who have your best interest at heart. If they cannot answer your questions, that's not the agent for you. 9 times out of 10, you don't know what questions to ask because you're trusting the insurance agent. Stop it. They're not all trustworthy, sweetie. You want to work with somebody who truly is about sharing knowledge, education, and information with you. If they cannot answer questions and educate you, I am very big on, I want to tell you about what your options are once I understand your lifestyle, okay? And then once I tell you what your options are, you call me. Amber, you call me when you're ready, right? I'm not chasing anybody. I want to educate you. And go and, what do you call that? Do a price comparison with what I'm telling you I can do. Call State Farm, call Liberty Mutual, call Northwestern. Compare. Make sure you're comparing apples to apples. Make sure that when you sign up for life insurance with somebody, they're going to give you service every year. So when your insurance agent, those of you who have insurance, when they call you and say it's time for your annual review, dagnabbit, make time to talk to them. Things may have changed in your lifestyle that you didn't even think about. Maybe you got married. Maybe you got divorced. Maybe you had another baby. Maybe you bought another big piece of property. You have to have a working relationship with your life insurance agent in order for them to be the most valuable to you. You're paying the company for a service. Let that agent serve you. That's their job. And if you're not getting an annual review, there's a problem. That's your first clue. They were in it for the money. Yeah, you're friends, but I got paid off of you. I'm not truly providing you service. Okay, so make sure, those of you who have life insurance, if you've not talked to your life insurance agent in over a year, you need to reach out to them. Tell them, I need to get a review. I need to know what's going on with my policy. I need to make sure that you're up to speed with any changes that have taken place in my life. That's important. Don't just let money come out of your bank account so you can say my family can bury me. How else can you use that life insurance policy? And for those of you who are in business for yourself, life insurance is a way to take care of your exit strategy. Did you even have one? Did you go into your business with a plan to exit? We come into this life with no plan to exit. So now I'm telling you, everybody needs to have life insurance. If you work for a living, you need to have term and whole life. If you're super wealthy, you don't need whole life. Wealthy people don't need life insurance, period. Who's my guy? I can't think of his name right now. Susie Orman and what's his name?
Ramsey.
Can't call
You're
it.
thinking of
Anyway,
Ramsey.
there you go,
Dave
Dave
Ramsey.
Ramsey. I'm gonna tell you guys, Susie Orman would roll over if she knew that I was saying this, but you better believe she's got whole life insurance. Whole life insurance is how you create generational wealth, guys. I could go into a whole nother story, but that's how it's done. Whole life insurance, the cash value that grows. And if you've got a young person in your family and you can find a 20-pay life policy with an insurance company, and you can get that baby a $500,000 policy when they're first born, it's like $200-300. Wealthy people do this, and they pay on that policy for 20 years, and then their commitment to the contract is over. The policy is still growing in cash value and face value, and so wealthy people will use the money that's in that policy to do investment deals, because when you take the money out, it's not taxed. Okay? Generational wealth is created with whole life insurance.
I just
Any
wanted to
other
say that,
questions?
yes, I just wanted to say that, yeah, that network marketing company James talked about, I did do that route, but fortunately, I had mentioned it to Stevie and I got out of it. But when I did it, I had just started working, right? I had been laid off, and I said, oh, this is cheap, so I have something until I can, get up to being able to pay more, right? But then I had flipped back and I said, wait a minute, this isn't so cheap, right? And and then I said, well, let me call Miss Stevie and break this down for me. Because I'm not afraid to ask questions when it's not my lane. And so needless to say, I got out of that policy and went into another policy that was more aligned to where I was. And then now it's almost that time for that annual review, because I do have some changes and things that I want to do, that we kind of mapped out a couple years ago, right? So I just wanted to say, yes, that is so true. And to
Mhm.
your point, James, don't go with that network marketing place.
Mhm. No, I'd say stick with State
Word,
Farm.
good information. Thank you.
State Farm should be able to give you whatever your needs are. So my recommendation is absolutely call your agent and share what your concerns are. And like I said, again, if you've not had a review, you need to. I'm sure you've probably had some changes in your lifestyle since you bought that policy. They need to be aware of that. It's called a working relationship. Do not let somebody sell you a life insurance policy and you never hear from them again. They're not providing you the service that comes along with that policy. Okay. All right.
Uh,
So you got something, Ambrose?
yes. Could you share some of your thoughts concerning the sort of the intersection or coordination of the life insurance with the estate planning, such as if someone is going to have a will, a trust, their power of attorney, those things. What are some of the issues or concerns that they should be looking for?
Most importantly, everybody needs a will. Everybody has an estate, whether they believe it or not. Homeless people who push their belongings in a grocery cart, that's their estate. You absolutely want to make sure that you do have a will, so that if you own property, it's not tied up in probate upon your death. If you've got it in a will, what's supposed to happen, then that real estate is safe. I also wanted to point out, since you said that, Ambrose, if you, and I do this when I'm talking with my clients. So let's say you're a single, you're not married, and you own a home. Upon your death, what do you want to have happen to that home? If you want to leave it to your children, make sure you're having a conversation with your children because they may not want that home. You may be leaving them an estate debt that they don't need. You don't want to leave your family members with an excessive amount of money. If they've never had money, they will disappoint you and you will spin in your grave. They'll run through that money and not do what you intended them to do with it because they've never had money before. So the first time they get it happened, I have a cousin came into $500,000 and she was blind and she bought 6 cars. 6 cars, gave away money like it was going out of style. Never had money before. Would not let me help her invest her money so that it would last her and her children for the rest of her life. Got put off of Social Security. She's diabetic, and the blindness came from diabetes. But there is a living testimony in my life. It's true. People who have never had money will burn through the money. So don't get these. And a lot of times, if you've got children that truly love you, they don't want to know that their parents are spending a ridiculous amount of money for a life insurance policy that they don't need because they're well off. They've got a good job. They've got, the spouses are working, the children are well. It would probably infuriate them to know that their parents are spending a ridiculous amount of money for a life insurance policy to leave them money that they don't need or that they don't want. So back to your question, Ambrose, everybody needs to make sure you've got a will, okay? Get a will, make sure you've got your life insurance policy, make sure the life insurance is enough to protect your term debt, and your whole life policy should be just enough to take care of your final expenses, okay? Also, if you have an attorney, have a really good conversation with your attorney. Talk about how you're going to divvy up your belongings upon your death. There is power of attorneys that you can do. My recommendation when it comes to a power of attorney is to make sure that you're doing a durable power of attorney so that nobody can make changes once you've said what you want done. Whoever you name as that durable power of attorney, they're going to be the person to make all the calls and all the shots upon your death. But that's going to be somebody that you know is trustworthy and will follow your wishes. Okay? Any other questions?
Yeah, thank you.
I
You're
just
welcome.
wanted, Paul had put a quote in the chat, and he said, JC said it, if you grew up with holes in your zapatos, you celebrate the minute you be having dough. And that's so
Okay,
true.
I like that one. Okay. All right. I'm going to pivot now to work opportunity. You got a question, Eric? I'm sorry.
Well, I don't know if there's time, but you had mentioned there's a story that you had, and you weren't sure about sharing it, but of someone who used, I think that you said that it was back when you were talking about using their policy to build generational wealth, or there's some story around that.
I'm going to share it. It's a good one. So I had a gentleman who came into my office when I was with Western and Southern, and he needed to get $200,000 out of this life insurance policy for his granddaughter. And I was real calm and cool as I did the paperwork. But the minute he left, I was like, Jesus Christ, how did he do that, right? And that's when I learned about the policy I'm mentioning to you guys, a 20-pay life. So what I did was I went into our illustration system. And at the time, my daughter was going to Mount Notre Dame. You all are familiar with Mount Notre Dame? So one morning, I'm taking my daughter to school to rehearse for a play, and this very young lady is pulling out of the driveway in a white-on-white Lexus, and I heard the sun hit the chrome on the car, dink, and I went, "You will never drive my brand new Lexus." She says, "That's not her parents' Lexus. That's her car. Her parents bought all the whiteboards for Mount Notre Dame." So again, I get this vision that super wealthy family, okay? So now I go into our illustration system for a 20-pay life, and I put in a $500,000 policy for a newborn, 30 days old. It was going to run them at that time like $230 a month. To wealthy people, they can afford that. And so I envisioned that this family bought that policy for their granddaughter when she was first born, and she's now in high school. So they came to get money out of that policy to go buy her a car. Now, they took that money and they went to the car lot. Think about the lenders, you guys. They went to the car lot, and the car salesmen are all fighting about who's going to serve them because they know this is a lender and they're going to pay with cash. They can buy any car they want off that lot with cash, can't they? Because they're lenders. Everybody knows they're good for it. They probably got a deal on the car, but in my mind, that's what happened with that little girl. So now I'm looking at the illustration. The daughter is about 29, getting ready to get married. Grandmother says, I've got the flowers. Grandmother goes to the insurance company. She takes money out of the policy to buy flowers for the grandbaby's wedding. Grandbaby doesn't have a clue where this money is coming from. All she knows is I'm in a wealthy family, and whatever I want, my grandparents are going to get for me by hook or by crook. So now, let's say the daughter has turned 45. Grandparents have passed away. Who do you think is using that life insurance policy? They've been finished paying for the policy when the child turned 20 because it was a 20-pay life. But the contract is still making money hand over fist because it was a $500,000 policy when they bought it. This policy is now worth well over $1 million because it's still making them money. Who do you think is using that policy for business investments? Her parents. They knew that the grandparents had this policy. And so upon the death of the grandparents, the parents are now the owner. The daughter still doesn't know that there's a life insurance policy on her life that's worth well over $1 million. So that's how generational wealth is created. Because when the parents passed away, the policy now goes to the rightful owner, the daughter. And she's got a ridiculous amount of money in that policy. And she can use it for whatever she wants to because it's hers. Crazy. But it's real and it happens. Okay. Any other questions? Thank you for asking me to share that story. I was trying to be mindful of our time. What I'm going to do now is just briefly walk you guys through a program that's a federally funded program. It's called Work Opportunity Tax Credit. And this program was originally created to take people off of federally funded programs like food stamps, welfare, Social Security. When they first started this program, why don't they teach this in school? You know what? They really should. I don't know who asked that. Crystal, they really should. I really like to try to make an impact when I have an opportunity to share knowledge, education, and information with people because I need whatever I'm giving to you, you can regurgitate it to somebody else. We need to start the chatter and make sure that people are being properly educated about things that they absolutely need to have in place for their lives. So if anybody on this call ever has any questions, never hesitate to call me. I do not mind answering questions. I don't feel like it's a waste of my time. My assignment from up there, my gift, is to share knowledge, education, and information. I am a servant, and I don't care how many people call me to ask me questions. Please ask questions. You need to be educated. Do not feel like you have to do business with me. You do not have to do business with me for me to answer a question. Okay? All right, so Work Opportunity Tax Credit is a program that was created to get people off of federally funded programs. And so what the federal government wanted to do was reward the companies for giving these people gainful employment. So what I want to share is we work to help corporations reduce their annual tax liabilities by processing all of this paperwork. Let me see here. I'm just going to look at the, okay, what am I? Okay. The main categories that do well with this program are going to be manufacturing companies, distribution companies, warehouses, restaurant industry, gas stations. It's going to be companies that are consistently hiring all year long. Usually I like to work with clients that are hiring at least 200 or more employees a year. That's when it becomes really valuable to the company. One of the things I want to point out is I want you all to think about companies that you'll hear they're doing veteran job fairs, right? That's because the Work Opportunity Tax Credit Program is most impactful to companies who hire veterans. The program will reward these companies anywhere from $2,400 per head to $9,600 per head. The qualifying categories are going to be, let's see, food stamps, cash assistance, rural communities. So if somebody lives out in the boonies and they travel inner city to go to work, they're worth some money to that company. You've got long-term, short-term cash assistance recipients. You've got summer youth, people who hire, companies who hire summer youth. Those summer youth are worth $2,400, and all you need is a school ID to prove to the state that that's a summer youth that's on your payroll. You've got Social Security recipients and ex-felons. You've got vocational rehab, people who are learning new skills through an organization. Those people or those organizations can get a tax credit. So in a nutshell, the company may, when it's time to go file taxes, they may find out that they owe $100,000 in taxes, but if they're utilizing the Work Opportunity Tax Credit Program, we may have found them $50,000, $60,000 in tax credit. So instead of them writing out a check for $100,000, they're writing that check out for $40,000. If they owed $100,000 and we saved them $60,000, they're going to write their check out for $40,000. This program is a federally funded program that is never going away. It's been in existence for 30 years. A lot of people don't know about it. A lot of people think they know about it, but they don't understand how it works. So my goal is to make sure that I'm ringing the bell and sounding the alarm that this program is out here, and a lot of companies need to take advantage of it. Some smaller companies are capable of running this program on their own. I would never recommend that you pay a vendor to run this program. If you're a small business, you can learn how to do it for yourself, but still take advantage of those tax credits. Small companies, or say small entrepreneurs that maybe you don't owe on the business side, but you owe on your personal side, you can use these tax credits for the personal tax credit too. So just another feather in your cap to know a little bit of something about the Work Opportunity Tax Credit Program.
So Kings Island is getting paid.
Oh,
they're almost paying no tax.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you bet they are, because they hire hundreds of people, and the people that they're hiring, these kids, a lot of the kids could be living in a household with somebody who's receiving cash assistance or food stamps, and that makes that company eligible to receive the tax credit for that child. Large companies that are, let me just put it like this, major corporations are using this program. They're killing the program. But that's why it was so important to me to make sure I get out here and let some of what we consider to be large companies know they should be utilizing this program too. And don't sleep on an opportunity to save some money and keep your business afloat. Right?
So when you when you say that small businesses can do it on their own, can file for the work opportunity tax credit on their own, um, are there things that they have to be careful about to not mess up as they do it?
Right.
And if they want to have some assistance, what kind of options are there? Do they go to their tax preparer, their lawyer, a consultant, or you know, are there
The
other
tax
resources to help them?
their tax preparer can help them with it. If they've got a payroll department, that's who they're going to work with. But for the most part, a small company, I have absolutely no problem teaching them how to do it for themselves. I just don't want to see people get taken advantage of. You're already a small business. The last thing you need to do is be spending money unnecessarily for something that all I got to do is show you how to do it, and you can do it for yourself. And it's really super simple. The only problem with being a business owner and doing it for yourself is you legally cannot ask the questions that need to be asked. And so you would just give the new employee the form that they're supposed to mark a box. And if they don't mark a box, you process it anyway for just in case. That's the big secret, is not being able to. Sometimes it's better to have a vendor, but if it's a small company, I'm going to say give that new employee the paperwork, and if they mark something, submit it. If they don't mark it, don't submit it. Using a vendor, we as a third party entity, we are able to ask that new employee. I've narrowed it down to just 6 questions, and if they say yes to something, then we go ahead and process it, and then we do all the legwork in the back to get the proof that they really did receive their assistance from whatever government entity it was that they qualified under, to determine how much it's worth. The tax credits began to become available to the employees after that employee works at least 120 hours. They've got to work at least 120 hours. That's 3 weeks, right? At 120 hours, that's when that employee becomes of value to that company. Your staffing companies, they can make a killing with this program. And through the staffing company, once they go permanent with the company that the staffing company had them with, that company should be utilizing WOTC. So the staffing company got a tax credit, and so did the company who hired them from the staffing company can get a tax credit too. So as I said, major corporations are killing this program. I need for our what we consider to be large companies to know that they can use this program too. Okay.
Um,
Any questions?
well, I just have a statement. So, here at Central State University on main campus, they just are starting up a workforce and business development center in Dayton at our
Mhm.
Dayton West location. And that is in partnership also with the College of Business, specifically, the advanced manufacturing part of the business
Mhm.
college. And so I like to connect you to that because they just recently hired the director for that. So this is a new and upcoming center, and I think
Mhm.
what you presented on a WOTC would be of value. And our CED team will be working with them. But like I said, it's new, so we don't know our exact role yet.
Right.
But I know that
Mhm.
that is a critical piece, that they are working directly with employers as well as the workforce to help those kind of targeted types of industries. So I think that would be a good opportunity and a good alignment for what you do, and some of the things that they need.
Okay. Not a problem. You've got my number. Okay. So that's all the knowledge that I can share today. Any other questions from anybody? Was this educational and informative for you guys? Hopeful? Good.
I learn
Good.
something
That's my
every time
goal.
I talk to you. So,
Good. That's what I'm here for, guys. I'm here to serve. Anytime you all have any questions about the life insurance or the work opportunity tax credit, by all means, please don't hesitate to call me. I'm a phone call away for questions. It does not bother me, not at all. If I don't answer my phone, it's probably because I'm super busy with another client, but I will return calls and I will return emails. Okay? All right. Thanks
Does
again,
anyone have
Amber, for
any other
having me.
questions? And Chantrice put in the chat, this was richly dense, and thank you for all the information you shared with us today.
You're welcome, sweetie. Happy to do it.
Thank you. So now this part, for closeout, we typically, Eric and Ambrose and I will kind of give some final comments, and then you can close us out, Stevie. So go ahead. We'll start with Eric.
I just really appreciate this, such important information, and I think you it was mentioned in the chats, but boy, we sure could be doing a better job as a society to get this in front of people, right? So this is hugely helpful, and to be honest, I mean, in the community and development field, you don't even really talk about, okay, when you work with families, can you use some of these tools to build generational wealth? I'm just having light bulbs go off. So I just appreciate it, and I'll keep thinking about that. And I,
Yeah.
I know Amber and Ambrose will, enlighten me further. But yeah, I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for sharing with us today. I learned as well, and in particular, the coordination between the term and the term life and the whole life.
Mhm.
That was my first time hearing that sort of usage of them, that specific
Mhm.
usage, and having those
Right.
two distinct areas, and that makes a lot of sense. And so
Mhm.
so that was good to hear, and I'll sort of think over that. And then in terms of the linkage between the life insurance and the estate planning, and the need, and emphasizing that need for
Mhm.
the estate planning for the will, but along that same line, I think that's where the power of attorney comes in,
Mhm.
also. And we've come through the pandemic. It really sort of highlighted, that was one of the issues that sort of surfaced as well, that folks were not
Yeah.
prepared, even with
Right.
power of attorney, for someone to go and take care of your affairs on your behalf, while you were,
Whew.
ill. So yes,
Mhm.
I do appreciate you sharing that, and I think we'll probably have some need for some further sessions, to focus in on some of these things. So thank you.
Yes.
Good.
And
Good.
also think about, Ambrose, for your Just a Paycheck Away program. That might be a
Oh yeah.
topic to
Mhm.
add in that. I just thought about that. And Miss Stevie, the Just a Paycheck Away is really focusing on the families and that
Mhm.
emergency response, and not being just
Mhm.
the paycheck away of being homeless,
That's it.
are
Right.
major issues, and being more prepared
Right.
and how to transition where you're reducing that
Mhm.
risk, right? So that might
Yep.
be another avenue where we can work together. But I echo what Ambrose said, you know, how to leverage the term and the whole life together as a package, and not
Yeah.
one or the other, because somebody say, no, you only need term, no, you only need whole
Right.
life, right?
Mm-mm.
Um, is you know, critical. So I appreciate that conversation, and look forward to working with you um, on some other projects, initiatives, and creating some workshops so that we can continue to get this information out. So just thank you for
Yeah.
coming, and I'll turn it over to you if you have any final comments or anything you would like to make.
No, no more comments. Anybody that has any questions, feel free to reach out to me at stevie@swainconsultingllc.com. That's my email. My work phone is 513-818-1753, extension 4.
Could you
Uh,
repeat that again?
513-818-1753, extension 4. And anytime you guys have any questions, please don't hesitate. Utilize me as a resource anytime. I'm here to serve, period.
And I
Okay?
put your contact information in the chat. And once again, this will conclude um, this week's edition of CED Office Hour Live, where we talked about reducing personal and business risk. Thank you again. Thank you, Miss Stevie. And
You're
everyone
welcome.
have a great week and a great weekend and get your insurance in order. All right. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye, guys.